Good morning, everyone. Hi, it is Stacy. This is Loving My Veteran, and we are walking in my shoes this morning. It is a beautiful Tuesday here, finally. Sun's out. I'm not floating away. That's always a plus. Everybody, grab your coffee. Come join us. Get a few sips in so we have a great morning. Going to take just a minute, let some people pop on here. Real quick, briefly, as we go through our morning here. Boot camp is full. So applications have been sent out for the few people who have not turned theirs back in. Please do so because at noon today we will no longer accept any applications for this session of boot camp. We will, however, be posting the next session, which will be in October. So we're super excited that it has already filled up. And can't wait to go forward with boot camp. So boot camp is full. I'm so excited. Good morning, Michelle. Today we're going to talk about something that I think we all need to talk about. We all need to hear. We all need to pay attention to. We've talked about setting boundaries, setting boundaries, setting boundaries, setting boundaries. There's a few things we need to understand. First of all, setting boundaries is not a rule list. Okay, and when you start with that, it doesn't work. So let's understand that going forward. It is not a rule list. But when you don't set boundaries, you are setting things up to create that perfect storm. When you do not set boundaries, you are setting things up to create the perfect storm. There was a movie years ago called The Perfect Storm, and it's where two cells, two superstorms formed together. Every condition was right. Everything was right. They were both big storms on their own, and it was based on a true story, but they were both big storms on their own, and they combined together to create the perfect storm. And that's what happens when we don't set appropriate boundaries. That's what happens when we allow those boundaries to be crossed. That's what happens when we get in our mind, hey, look, I'm going to set these boundaries. We get ourselves all psyched up for it. We talk about them. And next thing we know, we've set them, but we give in. We make an excuse not to hold our boundary. Good morning, Nikia. A lot of times we don't understand what boundaries are. So we're going to start with that kind of a little bit, just a little brief synopsis of what boundaries are. But when you don't use them, and when you don't set them, and when you don't utilize those boundaries, you are creating the perfect storm. And we just need to stop because all it does is create so much turmoil. So here's how this works. Boundaries are not a rule list, okay? It's not a list like, when you go to the pool at a motel, I think everybody's been there, and it says, no lifeguard on duty, do not jump, do not dive, do not run, do not bring glass, do not, do not, do not. And there are all these rules, these lists of things you cannot do. Okay, as somebody is like, look, if you're going to come into our pool, you cannot do these things. And so there's a whole list of rules. Well, people, when we start setting our boundaries, we tend to think of boundaries as a rule list. We tend to think of boundaries as a rule list. Okay, you are no longer going to do this. You're no longer going to do that. You're going to do the dishes. You're going to help out around the house. You're going to change the way you talk to me. You're going to do this. You're going to seek counseling. You're going to get on medication. You're going to. All you've done is create a set of rules. That's all you've done. And we have a right to set boundaries, and we should. They have a right to act however they choose, just like we do. We don't have to do things. That is on us. They don't have to do things. That is on them. But when you create boundaries, boundaries aren't about what they have to do and what they don't have to do. Boundaries are about protecting your bubble, protecting your space, protecting your sanity. Exactly. Nikia uses a stop sign theory, her and Richard. So it wasn't about Richard, hey, look, when we talk, you're going to use the stop sign or else. That isn't what happens. She goes in and she says, we're not communicating effectively this way, and we're not going to disrespect each other this way. So when we get to this space, we're going to stop, take a minute, back off, and start over, because I'm not allowing, not that you're not allowing him to act the way he wants. I'm not allowing the behavior that went on, the yelling, the screaming, the hateful words, whatever went on. I'm not allowing that into my conversation anymore. Okay, so she didn't tell Richard, you can't do this. She says, if you're going to have an effective conversation, we're going to work within this boundary, this parameter. And we get so confused, I think, when we set boundaries, that the boundaries are a rule list for them. They're not. They're about what protects you. Carla and I get into it. I am the first one who says, I need space. Get out of my bubble for a minute. Let me have some space. All right. Initially, that didn't happen. It was like the puppy dog and the chihuahua, right? It was like I need space, get away from me. And I'd storm off. And then he'd follow me and say something. And then I'd open the door and I'd yell back at the word, something to him. And then I'd shut the door and expect him to stay out of that space that I was in, right? Okay. Yeah, and she knew it worked great when he used the stop sign on her. But I would do that. So I'm in the bedroom and I go, it was at the time in the other house, it was the office. And I'd go in there like, just give me 5 minutes. And I'd walk in there and we'd be arguing. And I'd storm off into there, no walking, storm off into the bedroom, slam the door. He'd come after me to say something. I'd open the door and say, I don't want to hear your shit, you, and shut the door, right? Then he might say something, and what did I do? I opened the door and I said something else, and then I'd shut the door. Where there was no effectiveness there. If I tell you that I need space because I need to get my mind right, then setting that boundary would have been, hey, when I go and tell you I need 5 minutes and I need space, I needed to go take that 5 minutes and that space for me, but I didn't. I kept going to you and throwing my 2 cents worth in, spewing more venom, right? And then I expected you not to be part of that. Like the rules didn't apply both ways. Nope, when I set that boundary was for me. That boundary was for me because I didn't want to allow the negativity in my bubble. I didn't realize that at the time. I realize it now. But when I was initially setting those boundaries, I was like, but it's okay for me to do whatever, but it's not okay for you. And I made a huge mistake doing that because I didn't comprehend what I was doing, because I made the boundary about a rule list for him and not about what I'm allowing in and out of my space. See, that's where the problem lies. We all here, look, every group we're in, every group any of us are in, they all say, set boundaries, set boundaries, set boundaries. Well, if you don't know how to set them, what good is that? Okay, what good is that? That's like asking Nakia to cook. Okay? And I'm not picking on her. She knows that unless she's doing taters and weenies in the wok, that's like asking her to cook this gourmet meal. And it's not going to happen unless her twin sister comes there. You can't do that if you don't know what you got going on here. And so that happened to us. And we went through that. And I realized that by not creating and maintaining boundaries that I set for me, I was allowing the perfect storm to develop. Because this is what happens. I got wrapped up in my turmoil, in my fight, in my fuel. I was angry, I was resentful, and I was spinning and spiraling and spiraling and spinning and spinning and spiraling. And he was over here doing the same thing, right? So you got these 2 massive storms going on, and then we collide, and we created a superstorm, and nobody understood why. Why? Because all he saw was his actions. All I saw was my actions. We never took a step back to see the combination of the actions. That perfect storm. That perfect storm that starts by not creating boundaries that are for you. That's why when a really bad storm comes, they moor ships correctly. Okay, they bring them in and they tie them out. Or they take the big ones out and they float them out past the storm. They take them to safe harbor. Think of your boundaries as your safe harbor. Nobody goes out and says, look, y'all, I live on the East Coast, okay? I've been through hurricane evacuations after hurricane evacuations after. People don't come to you on a general rule, unless you are really disabled, on a general rule, door to door, and knock on your door and say, hey, sweetie, look, it's time to evacuate. Can we help you pack your stuff? Do we need to go get gas in the car for you? Do we need to do this? No, it's up to you to get your stuff together to go to safe harbor. Same thing happens when you set boundaries. Those boundaries are for you to establish, to create a safe harbor around your being. That's what they are. They're not about making rules that they can't do, because they have a right to do whatever they want, just like you have a right to do whatever you want. We have those rules. But what they're about is not allowing when that is going on, when it is a behavior, a word, a mindset, a verbiage, whatever it is, whatever is in your wheelhouse that needs to change, because we all have different things that need to change. Whatever it is, you don't have to allow that into your space. You still have to deal with it, and you may have to talk about it, but you don't have to allow it into your space with all the anger and the rage and the stuff, or you create the perfect storm. Now, it's easy for me to talk about hurricanes because I live on there, but let's talk about the same concept happens with the woods fire. And then, because the very next thing people say, and I get this all the time, it is so amazing. Why do I have to be the one to change? You don't. I'm not telling you to change. When you come here or to any group or whatever, you're asking usually for advice on, hey, how did you get through it? How did you find the light at the end of the tunnel? What did you do that made it different? I'm not telling you something we haven't already tried and failed at again and failed at again, but we kept trying. Okay? So people ask. So now let's just talk about it from a woods fire perspective. Anybody ever been through a woods fire? It is a massive, massive thing, right? And a woods fire can create its own storm and its own rage. And, you see these storms will jump and they'll become one big fire. But have you ever seen ahead of it? When they go to contain these fires, they dig a fire break. Now, I don't know how many of you have ever seen it being done. I'm sure you've seen it like on TV or whatever. But these big trackers with these big plows go in, and ahead of the fire, they dig these trenches and clear the underbrush. And it's called a fire break. And they're usually only about 12 feet wide. One in, one out. Okay, they don't clear a half a mile path. They clear a path about 12 feet wide. And what they do when they turn all that stuff up is they're taking the underbrush and the stuff out, so it reduces the fuel load to the fire. So think of your boundaries as that fire break. Think of your boundary as that fire break now. You're now going to go in, your fires are raging. You're going to go in and you're just going to dig you a nice little fire break that removes some of the fuel from the fire, from the storm, from the fight, and it doesn't have to be big. It only got to be 12 feet wide. And those things, those things are important. Sarah says nothing's going to change if I don't change first. It is not comfortable, though, putting yourself out there. It's not. But it's worth it. Because you got to remember that you come looking for answers and looking for stuff and get to where you are, right? Yeah, this is so good. I can just tell you, if you ever get to the point of good communication skills, no matter how bad life can still be worth. Yeah, it's so true. And it can be fun. And it can be all of these things. And life is. And that's what we're talking about, y'all. That's where we're going here. Take a minute and set your fire break. Because let me tell you something else about a destructive woods fire. Ever seen a destructive woods fire? They don't put out woods fires that are not endangering houses. They try to contain them, but they don't put them out. You know why? Because it kills the crap and the underbrush out from underneath so the forest can regrow and rejuvenate and become greener and healthier. That's why they do it. Sometimes they'll even do control burns to get the junk out of the way so that the forest comes back cleaner and healthier than before. And that's what we do when we create boundaries. When we create boundaries, you're going to see that those bridges you thought you burned or those woods that you thought you burned down, you're going to see those emerge better than ever before. And that's what's so important about this. You get caught up in all this negative goof, and you have to understand that we are responsible. If you don't want to be in the perfect storm, don't stay there. If you don't want to be in danger of your house burning to the ground because of the woods fire, don't stay there. Evacuate when it's important. Same concept happens. If you are wallowing in this storm in your relationships and you're wallowing in this mess in your relationship, choose not to be wallowing. I didn't say move. I didn't say walk out. I didn't say leave him. I said don't stay in the mental place that you're in. Change it. Who can change our mental attitude? Nobody but ourselves. Period. We choose to be happy. We choose to be angry. We choose to be outraged. Those are all things we choose. People and circumstances may cause us to get angry. They may cause us to feel frustrated. They may cause us to feel like we're having a bad day. They may cause all of those things, but it's how we respond. Okay? It is how we respond that matters. It is how we respond to that that matters. What are you doing? What is your response to this situation? Are you stopping the perfect storm, or are you creating that perfect storm? That perfect storm takes everything being right in a bad way. So take part of it out. And it sounds simple now. I promise you. It's like, hear me talk about it like, oh, well, it's just so simple. Just stop. No, it wasn't simple. It wasn't simple at all. Yeah, I came in with my boundary list. I was so proud. I had it seemed like 20 pages of freaking rules. Rules. 20 pages, like, of rules. And then I'm looking at them and knowing what I know now and knowing that I treated him like a toddler, knowing that I took away dignity, knowing how the warfighter brain processes things, mission driven, one or two items on the mission list, knowing what I know now, I am way more effective at setting good boundaries now than I was 2 years ago. Okay? That's just a given. I am way more effective at it now than I was then because I've learned so much and I continue to learn. You know, I had a conversation this morning and when we were talking about so many things, it was like, oh my God, he's just frustrating me. He's just totally frustrating me. It's like day in and day out, the same thing, the same song, the same whatever. And I finally just said, you know me, I'm going to tell you if your ass looks fat in them jeans. And right now it's looking a little that way. Because you keep saying to me that you're tired of the words, you want actions. Well, if this behavior is still continuing and it's still getting under your skin, you have nothing to do with the behavior. You can't change that. But you can change how it gets under your skin, then change it. What are you doing different? Stop bitching about it. And what change can you make to your bubble and your boundary that doesn't allow all that crap in? What can you do? Where's your actions? You know, and those aren't things we all want to hear. I'm going to tell you, I don't like people to, in Carl's words, call me out. I don't like it. But I'm telling you it is necessary. I'm telling you it is necessary to look at ourselves. I am telling you that it is necessary to realize that we all have a role in this game. I am telling you that it's necessary sometimes for us to be the one to cut the fire break. Because just look at it from this perspective. Your land is down here and the fire is up here, right? If you cut that break in between, it's not going to come down into your space. So you have to do that sometimes. Sometimes you got to be the one to get up and cut the break. Because you got to be the one to say, I'm done allowing this shit in my bubble. I'm done being tired. I'm done listening to the nonsense. I'm not going to be talked to in this tone of voice anymore. I'm going to be respected. You don't have to respect me, but you're going to talk to me with some respect. Okay? But in return, I'm going to talk to you in that respect. Because why is it okay for you to demand that respect and not give it to them? Okay, so that's probably an eye-opening experience for a lot of people. They're like, what the hell did she just say? And I thought I was here because it was about supporting me and not about making sure that I did anything for my veteran, because that's not what happens. Well, here we love our veteran, okay? So love and respect go hand in hand. So I can't sit here and say, you're going to respect me, or I would like you to respect me, because I can't make you do anything. But I can't say I want respect and not give it in return. Now, I know that's a whole new eye-opening thing for a lot of people. They're like, what the hell did she just say? Again, they're like, I'm not sure I want to hear this. Let me unwatch. Let me unlike. I don't care. I'm just going to tell you the way it is. Okay? Because that's my biggest thing right now, working on, and he is too. It is, and I'm going to tell you, sweetie, it doesn't happen, Meredith, overnight. It doesn't happen overnight. And here's the thing, when you speak to them without respect, when you spew venom, because I'm the Venom Spewer 101, okay, I am Venom Spewer, I own venom spewing. There is nobody on the venom spewing podium any higher than I am. If it was an Olympic sport, I would hold every gold medal to venom spewing that there is. That's just me. I'm owning that. I'm owning that. And what happens is that I will catch myself, or we found this in the past week or so, didn't realize it, until you start looking. We look for the negative. We don't always look for the good. So we were having discussions, we're having arguments, we argue. If anybody on here says we don't argue, right? If anybody says we don't argue, they've lost their mind. Oh, we have the greatest relationship ever. We never argue, we never disagree. Then I don't know who you living with, but you ain't living with somebody else. Okay, I'm just putting that out there. We argue. The difference is now is that he said something to me the other day, and I don't even remember what it was now. That's how irrelevant it was. He said something, and he caught himself, and he said, I'm sorry. I was like, what did you say? He said, I'm sorry. I realized what I was doing and I stopped myself. Okay, so I had already started in on the what did you say? That what did you say in that tone from me is like warming up in the venom spewing Olympics. Okay, so I'm just telling you, when it's like, what did you say? And my head bounces like a chicken, right? What did you say? It's going once those words come out of my mouth, I am preparing and warming up for venom spewing. I'm just telling you, that's the way it works in my house. But he stopped himself and he said, I didn't mean to say it that way. And I had to go from, what did you say? To, okay, honey, what'd you mean? What's really bothering you? And he said, can we talk about it? We're going to have a knee-jerk reaction. And I'm like, damn it, he knows too much. We talked about open communication. Sometimes don't ever wish for things that you're not ready for, because open communication is, you get called out a lot of bit sometimes, and it's not always good. But we caught ourselves. And so he said, I meant to say this. And so I sat and I listened. And I have found myself getting all blown up and ready to spit venom. And I'm like, I thought I looked at Carl the other day. I was saying something really out of control. It was like in the middle of the night, right? My back hurt or whatever. And I made we let Mouse sleep with us. That was hysterical. And I made some smart ass comment because I was miserable as I stormed out of the door. And he goes to say something and I said something back and venom spewing started. And then I had to take a deep breath. And I had to say, I just need some space. And I went in and I wrote something actually for the book. Girl's like, are you a bad man? I'm like, no, I'm not. Actually, I'm writing something for the book, and it's all about his praises. Because at that point, I realized that he had taught me to catch myself. And so we learn now to kind of catch ourselves. We still do it. We still get to that point, but we are learning to catch ourselves. And I'm going to tell you, when you go from perfect storm scenario with two big massive storms twisting and turning out in that ocean, to being able even after the storm to see where your faults were, okay, to see where your faults were, to now being able to catch yourself when you start to do the venom spewing or the fault. Those are huge strides. Those are like massive strides. And yes, snapping is so easy for me. And I think snapping comes from, and I'm going to tell you this too, snapping comes from being overwhelmed. Being overwhelmed, over angry, over frustrated. We are right there. We're at that breaking point and we snap, and whether it's snap or in Carl's words, knee-jerk reaction, or whatever it is that I do, okay? Whatever it is. Look, I'm telling you, he does know what buttons to push, but I promise you know which buttons are his to push too. I'm like speed dial button pushing. Got it! You know, I mean, if I had that little button from Staples that said that was easy, when it came to pissing him off and pushing the buttons, y'all, mine would do new batteries, because I'd be like, that's easy, that's easy, that's easy. Because I knew what to do to piss him off. It didn't take 2 seconds. And I could just like full-blown applause for hitting that that's easy button. Because I did it. I did it. Because sometimes, you know, I just wanted him to be as mad as I was, right? So it is one of those things. But that just comes from time. That just comes from time. Yeah, you do snap when you're mentally tired, because when you're mentally, emotionally, and physically tired, what happens? It is the opposite of what our strengths and our gifts are. So when we become bitchy, we know that we're really not bitches, that we're just tired. I'm just tired a lot, evidently. Okay? And you're not going to always succeed. But let me tell you something else about not succeeding at it. The thing is, Jennifer, when you said, you know, you're trying to catch yourself, but you don't always succeed, even if you bitch and you snap and you say whatever, let that moment go away for a minute and settle down. And then when you walk back in, say, I was a bitch. I snapped. I spewed venom. Own what you did. Okay, own what you did. Now I'm going to tell you, when you own what you did, be prepared for, as I call it, the veteran explanation. Okay, that's going to be somewhere between 15 minutes and an hour of them pointing that out to you and the things they did right and didn't do to contribute to that. Just be prepared for that. But I will also tell you that the 2 hour veteran explanation is now shrinking in time for us. But when you go back in after things have calmed down a little bit and you say, hey, remember when we had this conversation and I snapped and I bit your head off or I said hateful things? I really shouldn't have done that and I'm sorry. And all of a sudden now you take ownership, right? You're taking ownership for your mistake. What do you think over time is going to happen to them and their mistakes in taking ownership? See, here's where we get all screwed up in the boundaries and everything else. And I know I'm going to talk longer today because I'm on a roll here. I'm sorry. But here's what happens when we get caught up in this. We want them to take ownership. We want them to take ownership. We want them to take ownership. We want to point out everything they do wrong. We don't ever want to take ownership for anything on our own. And when we do, we don't want to admit that we've made a mistake because it's not about us. We're not the ones with PTSD. We're not the ones making the mistake. We're not the ones having a problem in this relationship. It is all them. It is all them. It is all them, because that's the mindset we create initially going into this. And then all of a sudden we sit back and we realize, crap, I snapped. I'm spewing venom. I'm the bitch. It is my fault too. I am a contributing factor to this. Because have y'all ever tried to have an argument with yourself? I mean, I do occasionally stand in front of the mirror and argue with myself, but an argument with yourself doesn't really go anywhere. So it takes two people to argue. So I'm going to tell you, when one of you steps out, it's okay. And now you're not arguing like you were, but to be able to go back in and say, I'm sorry, I did this, and take ownership of what you did. What you did. And even if you have to hear the 15, 20, 30, 45, 2 hour explanation about that they did everything right, let them. It's okay. Don't even defend it. Just put your song in your head and just sing, Little Lamb Chop, it is a song. Don't bop your head. Just let them get it out. Because letting them get it out, everybody says they don't communicate with me. They don't communicate with me. And Carly had said to me, you know why I don't communicate with you all the time? Because you always cut me off. So sometimes if you want communication, you got to listen to that 2 hour dissertation. And I promise you that will get smaller and smaller over time. And that's how it works. But when you take ownership for your own mistake and all of a sudden they see you doing that, it didn't take long of you taking ownership of, hey, I screwed this up. I crossed my own boundary. I crossed your boundary. I did something inappropriate. This is not the way I want to be talked to, so I'm sorry I talked to you that way. Now all of a sudden they see that. They no longer feel like you're always pointing fingers at them. They no longer feel like they are always the blame for everything. They realize it is a give and take and it is a relationship problem. And I promise you, in the long run, they will respect you in a way you've never been respected before. That is about demanding, expecting, and getting respect. That's what it takes. So I know I kind of went off on a little tangent there, sorry. But that's the reality. That's reality. Yeah, we have that too. We had that really, really, really often in the beginning. He doesn't let me walk away when he gets mad at the yelling point. That's when you really have to, and I had to do it after the you can't. Again, you will not communicate with them effectively when they are in that rage and yelling point, just like you're not going to communicate with me effectively when I'm in it either. You might as well be talking to the wall. But after it kind of dies down, that's when you go back and say, look, I understand where you were going. I understand where you were going with this. But I need some time when we get to this point. And if you let me walk away for 5 minutes, not leave, not because their fears are leaving, Let me walk away for 5 minutes. I'll go in the office, I'll go in the bathroom, I'll go in the bedroom, I'll do whatever. 5 minutes, that's what I want. When you say 5 minutes, by God, you better give him 5 minutes, not six, five. That was the beginning for us. It was 5 minutes, and it was in the bedroom. And I'm telling you, he literally stood outside the bedroom with like freaking head on the door. I don't know what he was listening to, but 5 minutes. And now it becomes, hey, look, I just need my space, and I'll go sit outside for a minute, or I'll go type for a minute, and I'll even go for a drive now. And this is coming from a guy who, and I'm not kidding y'all, when I wanted to leave to go clear my head and get some space, not leave him, just get some space, he took the spark plug wires off the truck. But what he didn't realize is a big V8 will run on 7 cylinders just fine. So, so I do get it. I do understand. And now we don't have that problem. Now it's like, I need to go for a ride. He's like, do you want me to open the gate for you? Yes, please. And that becomes the new thing, because he knows, and he knows I'm coming back, and he knows I'm okay, and he knows we're good. But it started literally 5 minutes in a room, and that's how it got to where it is now. But yeah, it took a while. It took a while. Because the kid, I tried the walking outside thing, and he would walk outside like the chihuahua behind me. I'm like, shit, we got neighbors. Okay, we got neighbors. And you do realize that we live in a town that I grew up, my kids all grew up in. It's not good. We've got neighbors. Will you stop? So, yeah, we don't, but that's how we did it. You have to walk away. All right, y'all, I'm going to get off of here. I know I've kind of rambled a little bit today. Um, Boot camp. If you have not sent in your email, it is too late. Those emails that have been sent in, we put those applications back out to everybody today. They've all had them before today. They have till noon today. That class is full, full. Have to admit that never thought this would happen, but that class we initially talked about 70-ish, and I think we've pushed that 75 limit. So that class is full. We will be doing another one. I will put the dates up tomorrow, so and a new application for that you can start on and get yourself on that list. If anybody did not get in boot camp and wants to be on the now they understand us, right? If anybody did not get in this boot camp and wants to be put on a waiting list, you can do that as well. So let me get off of here. So we have a lot going on today. Lots behind the scenes going on as usual. Working on the book. There will be a book coming out in September on Kindle. Walking in My Shoes. Be our story. It's what we've struggled with, and how we've gotten to where we've gotten to, and the pointers that we use. And it will be available on Kindle mid to late September, and print version probably by November-ish. That's what we're hoping for anyway. All right, so we have a fundraiser out on the page. Please, if you have not seen it, done it, we have already reached out to, and again, if you have a home-based business and you want to participate, please get a hold of Melissa. We are doing fundraisers from home-based businesses. This particular one we started, Elisa has done Origami Owl. It is out there. Please log in. And I promise that it'll be worth it. Okay. So I'm going to get off of here. Anybody needs me, you can message me on the page. I am Stacy. This has been Walking in My Shoes. We are loving my veteran. Y'all have a blessed day. Bye.